We already had a video about the Great League for the new Paldean Pokemon, so let's take a look today at the Open Ultra League here, level 50 version, like XL Pokemon are allowed, and let's take a look at what the Pokemon that are new in the Paldea version, like in the Paldea region there, with the new games, could do in this meta. Let's start immediately here with the Tinkaton. This Pokemon I already showcased for the Great League, and now this Pokemon is also very decent for the Ultra League. Does need some XL candies as well here, does need to be actually fully XL as well, which is kind of crazy. Let's see what this thing can do here in this league. It's going to be actually really decent. If it gets the same moveset as what I expect, this is definitely a moveset that's very likely, as it doesn't really have different kind of fast moves anyway available. And for charge moves, they are not really too crazy either. There are mostly better options for charge moves, but this is very likely that they would give something like this. Again, you're going to see the pictures of the Pokemon always on the right side, as we see a ton of Pokemon that it can destroy. The cool thing about this is just the typing. The typing itself is one of the best defensive typing in the game. You already see it from Mawile, which doesn't have the best stats. It's already very decent with that, and having a Pokemon with those typings again will be very nice. There's also Mythical, which is not available yet, from I think Generation 6 actually. Or is it 6 or 7? I think it's 6. That is also the typing there with Magearna, but we don't know when that's coming to the game, but definitely Tinkaton is something you might want to take a look at. Another Pokemon that we already had in the one before is going to be Screamtail again. This Pokemon sadly still doesn't have a really good fast move other than Bite, potentially, but still this Pokemon has stats that are better than Cressalia's, which is currently I think the best Pokemon for the Ultra League with like high AVs, as you can see here. Needs to be fully XL. I actually wonder how they want to do this with the XL candies for those future Paradox Pokemon or future and past Pokemon there, as they are based on a different Pokemon, of course, but I'm not sure if they count towards it. I think they would need to give it extra XL candy that are only for this species, because I think they're not directly related to. But here you see like the stats of this thing gets perfectly to 2500 basically. Needs to be basically fully XL, and this Pokemon has very nice stats, very defensive, very bulky. With this moveset it would be very strong as well. Even with Bite, which is a horrible fast move, it still would be very strong. Especially if you give it the Psychic Fangs, which it also learns, which would be very cool, to be fair. Moveset itself is very decent as well. And having a Pokemon like this, I actually would like to see a Pokemon like this. Like Bite is such a annoying move, but like it's not really a strong move, so seeing something that would actually perform with that would be very cool. Would also beat the Cresselia and Giratina together, which is nice. I think even maybe the Registeel. No, the Registeel still beats it though. But I think in the two shields, I think it might be way too overpowered. Let's see real quick. For the two shields, yeah, it only has 10 losses, because you have, of course, a debuffing move, and debuffing plus Bite will do a ton of damage. Also, Bite is very decent for the Ghost types, which is, of course, super effective against you. So a very cool Pokemon if it comes to the game. At least stats-wise, we're going to have here Orthworm, which is going to be also one of the better ones here. There's not a lot, again, like it's just a complete new generation. They're not going to be a ton of very strong Pokemon. They're going to be some that are like a little bit more mid-stage. I guess this one is going to be one more that's a little bit mid-tier. Would have access to Mudshot, would have access to Mud Slap, Smackdown, Tackle. Body Slam and Iron Head are very likely to be the moves, and you see it's not the best. Maybe for some limited metas, to be fair, it could work out a little bit better. We have the two shield scenario here. You have options with really good fast moves that are really decent, but you also have a very decent typing. But I guess there are other Pokemon like Steelix who just perform a little bit better, especially if you take a look at the stat difference. Steelix has a little bit better defensive rating here as well. You see like nearly 1000 extra on overall, which is kind of crazy, so most likely not the best, but still a fun Pokemon. The final one that is also in the Great League video going to be the Toedscruel. This Pokemon again would have access to specific moves. I would just go ahead and go for the most likeliest one with double nuke Mudshot. This would be a very cool Pokemon as well. It seems a little bit like okay-ish here, only with like those 17 wins, but I think it's going to be a very cool one. Stats wise, you see it already, it's a very decent one, and you have a lot of potential, especially maybe in some specific metas there. Currently, I think with the Virizion possible meta, Trevenant meta, it might not have the craziest play, to be fair, but stat wise and also for like restricted metas, which they do nowadays, it might be a very cool Pokemon to use as well. And you do need actually XL candies for this as well. The next Pokemon going to be another legendary Pokemon, actually, or one legendary Pokemon that is in this game as well. There are 4 other than the main legendary so far. And we will see here Ting-Lu, which is going to be a ground and dark type Pokemon, and you see already has a very good stats for this kind of meta. You see low attack, high defense and high stamina, especially stamina is crazy. Has a very cool move pool as well. There are a ton of things that it can learn. Most likely it's going to be something like Sand Tomb, Dark Pulse and Snarl or something like this. It also learns Mud Shot, I guess. So with this, it would be definitely a very cool option. There are a ton of options that you can use here. Really depending on what you're going to face here, this thing could definitely be a cool Pokemon to use. Has very decent stats, and I think the typing might be a little bit of a letdown though. Ground and Dark has a lot of weaknesses like Fairy, Fighting, Ice, Water, Grass. So I think it might be a little bit tricky to use a typing, but the Pokemon itself looks like it has a lot of potential. Next time we're going to have here one all favorite here with the Dudunsparce. You already know Dunsparce from the Great League. This thing has now an evolution where it's basically 2 Dunsparce. This one most likely going to get a special move as well when we get it in the game. There's like, I think it's like Hyper Drill or something. It's a normal type move that does all 100 damage. Which is not in the game yet, so I'm not going to program it in. I just gave it the same moves that the pre-evolution has with Dunsparce. Looks like a cool Pokemon here, to be fair. Doesn't need XL candies at all, which is cool. It's a little bit less than I thought it would be, to be fair. The Dunsparce could have been a little bit better. I don't know, like, it's not going to have these stats for the Master League, so, like, this is the best thing where it can really shine, but I thought I kind of introduce it just here because it's, like, it's a cool Pokemon. It still has a decent amount of bulk there. I guess just having no stab move might hurt. If you give it something like Body Slam with it, it would learn this. Let me see real quick how much better this would make it, because it has, like, this special move that it could learn from itself. Yeah, it looks definitely way better. Hyper Drill maybe comes better than in there, and most likely going to be a better one as well. The next one here, we're going to have the evolution of the mid stage that I already showcased for the Great League here. We're going to see the same moveset basically as before already. Smackdown will be very likely. It's this thing again here, like it really depends on what it learns. If it gets Mud Shot, it's most likely going to be way better. This thing has a very nice stats again, has a very low attack and very decent defense and stamina value here. Doesn't really need XL candies either. But the thing again is rock typing is not a really good defensive typing. You know it already from the Regirock. And I think this is just a worse version of Regirock, but still might be a cool one. Also might be cool for Great League, but really like rock typings are usually not the best. Wish there might be an update for rock typing, but like we don't have that yet. Next Pokemon going to be also a legendary Pokemon here with the Wu-Chen here, which going to have an interesting stat product here as well. You're going to have a little bit more defense than anything else. Stamina is also a little bit higher than any attack, so it's going to be kind of nice. Has some very interesting moves here. I would expect something like Bullet Seed as a fast move, Seed Bomb, Foul Play. Not going to be the greatest as well, but it might be a little bit better than something like Shiftry right now. Shiftry has a similar moveset there. Legendary Pokemon, but I don't know. It's definitely stat-wise one of the better ones in this generation, but I think the typing itself just kind of lets it down sometimes. The next Pokemon going to be very interesting because I don't know actually what's going to happen with this one. You're going to have Bellibolt here, which is something that needs a slight XL candy. This is already something that already showcased as well for like everybody. Like it's one of the Pokemon the few Pokemon that got shown before. We're going to have the move Wall Switch here, and this Weather Ball Water is like the interesting thing here. This thing is like half water type. It's not water type itself, which is the interesting thing, but it learns Weather Ball on its own, which is something that's I find at least interesting, and I think it learns all the weather types. I think water is like the most likeliest because it lives near water, lives like directly next to water. So I think like Weather Ball Water would make some kind of sense for Bellibolt. And if we take a look at this one now, like it would be so much better if it has the Weather Ball Water. It still gets hard rolled by Dragon types, for example, so it's not going to be overpowered. But otherwise, if you have just Discharge and Wild Charge, it's still actually pretty decent, to be fair. I didn't expect this. Like, as an electric type, this is a bulky-ish electric type that would be definitely way cooler than I thought. Might have some potential, actually, which I like. Definitely cool Pokemon. For the final one here, I don't know what I really think about this one yet, but we have to see. What I think what you're most likely gonna get is something like this or something different. Like we see here Annihilape. I don't know. It's going to be the evolution of Primeape, so Primeape gets another evolution, which is nice. Going to make it very viable for the Ultra League here. doesn't need XL candy either, and it has now the ghost typing, which is very interesting to take a look at because this thing could potentially be very strong. As you can see already, this is a very strong moveset already. If you go for Shadow Claw, you're also going to destroy even more Pokemon. Like, this thing going to be insanely strong. Like, there's basically no way around that this thing going to not be like meta for that. It's not going to be super bulky, so this might be something why it's a little bit more interesting for a lot of people for this kind of league here, but also, this will might even have some impact for the Great and Master League. I'm not going to include it just to include a few more different Pokemon here, but this Pokemon has potential for everything. Also, it learns a special move, which is Rage Fist, I think it's the name, which I would expect that we get a community day for it. Like, I think we're gonna get a community day, basically similar to what we had for Luna, where we can evolve our Primeape, where we can get the move Rage Fist then, which is a Ghost type charge move most likely, together with like Shadow Claw counter and like Close Combat or like Cross Chop. It's going to be such a strong Pokemon and something that you definitely want to take a look at.